This thing behind me is our aging, super high mileage Tesla Model S. It's done 430,000 miles. That's the equivalent of going to the moon and almost back again. It's done the length of the UK 716 times. That's the same as driving around the world 17 times. An electric car with nearly 500,000 miles on the clock. The battery's gotta be toast, right? Surely. We're gonna do a range test, a health check, performance test. We're gonna find out exactly what makes this car tick.
Original battery, original motors.
So this has had a couple of repairs.
We've got ourselves a set of cones and a stopwatch. Literally nothing's happening. I get the feeling it's not gonna charge. Don't forget you can buy yourself a new or used vehicle, electric, petrol or hybrid, owned or leased by visiting Auto Trader UK. Click the link down below and we'll help you find a great deal on your next set of wheels. Now, back to our high mileage Tesla. In this video, we'll be conducting a full health check with the assistance of an expert. This is Matt Cleveley from Cleveley EV, a vehicle repair company specializing in electric cars. They sell as well as provide MOT, servicing and repairs to all types of EVs, including high mileage examples like this one. If there's anyone who can tell us how well or how badly this particular Tesla has aged and what to expect from other high mileage EVs, it's Matt. Hey Matt.
Hi Rory, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thanks for inviting me along.
No worries. This is our very high mileage Tesla Model S.
Yes.
430,000 miles on the odometer. What do you think of the general condition?
So it's a facelift version. So it's a 2016 onwards vehicle. You can see the brows are failing on the daytime running lights here. That's a common fault. Both headlights are the same.
How much would that be to replace?
Headlights are about £1,400.
And the repair?
£400.
The big thing I want to get to is the battery,
okay.
And what state that's in, but we'll come to that in a minute, so stay tuned. Something else I want to show you is just up here.
I've spotted it, yeah. So it's another common failure. The wiper spindle wears in the wiper linkage there. It only happens on the driver's one, but due to its proximity, close to the bonnet here, it actually eats its way in on operation. So you can see it's cut this groove out of the bonnet.
What would the cost of the repair be?
So the new linkage is about £170 plus fitting, so it's around just over £250 bill.
Plus the cost of a new bonnet if it's gone that far?
Yeah, the bonnet's aluminium, so it wears really quick. So if you want it looking pristine again, another bonnet, which they're hard to find. I believe they're about £800 or £900. One thing I noticed, it's on 21s. They aren't very strong. So we'll have a look when we have a look on a ramp as to whether there's any cracks or dents or damage, but I can't imagine it's done 400,000 miles on those wheels.
So round the back,
yeah,
it's quite neat and tidy actually. Suspiciously neat and tidy, you might say, because there's nothing wrong with it.
My eyes first went to these lamps.
Yeah.
So these lamps, one in the tailgate, one in the body. The seal can break down between the body of the car and the seal of the lamp, and so you end up with either moisture, condensation, or water and spiders collecting in these lamps. Another thing whilst we're talking about that to check is, so if these seals fail, the water will inevitably get into the vehicle. So is the boot floor dry? It is, yeah. So it could be that these are the original lights and they're doing really well. You can see it's had aftermarket LEDs, cheap ones, put on.
Oh, is that why it's flickering?
They're flickering away. It's something Tesla owners like to do, replace the LEDs.
Right, should we have a look at the inside?
Yeah.
The screen has a slight problem with it.
So that's not uncommon. So there's a board around the screen where the two elements, the touch screen and the screen that's displaying, are just coming separated. Does the horn work?
No.
That's quite common as well.
You got to shout out the window.
So that's either overuse because it's a taxi,
yeah, exactly,
or the horn units are right in the front and they are susceptible to corrosion. There's another thing there, a little bit of play in the steering column.
Dangerous?
It's not ideal to, I mean, that's borderline an MOT fail.
Okay.
So, and an MOT is the most basic safety check. It's not ideal and it probably wants that universal joint changing.
Well, we should get that looked at some point.
Yes.
The other thing that I've noticed is on the dashboard, there's a warning about a fuse. The battery fuse needs replacement soon.
So internally there is a fuse, a pyro fuse, that if you're involved in an accident, airbags go off, that fuse blows so that there's no high voltage available outside of the pack.
So the battery itself is fine, but the battery on the fuse is close to expiration.
Yes.
So that's why you got to replace it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. There is a service mode in these cars, isn't there, where you can check the quality of the battery?
Absolutely, yeah. So Tesla wrote service mode into the coding of the MCU, which is fantastic even for us as garages. What Tesla do first and foremost is they're a computer company. They've built brilliant software and hardware that runs it, and then built a car around it. Yeah, we go into this, so we go into there, we push this. So it's like a cheat code on an old computer system. So then we type in service, and we enable it. The red border denotes that it's in service mode, and you can see that cluster in front of us has changed.
And what does that allow you to actually do?
So there's a whole menu of service options now. If you've lost any coolant, for instance, and the tank was empty, you can actually do a coolant air purge from here. You've got door handle calibration, brake burnishing, so there's a few bits in that. You can reinstall software from here, and you can check service alerts. So service alerts are things that are flagging faulty components.
But there's one thing that this doesn't do, I've noticed on this version of Generation 1 MCU, it doesn't let you run a battery diagnostic test on this particular one.
No, it doesn't, no.
But there are ways around that, aren't there?
There are, yes. We can remote in as a company with a partner that we work with.
Okay. Well, speaking of which, I think we should probably go and get this car up on a lift.
Get it on a ramp. Yeah.
Analyze the battery as well and see whether it's completely ruined or whether it's got some life still left in it.
I'm really interested to see the underside of it as well, especially after you saying it's not been serviced. I want to see how hanging it is underneath.
Let's do it.
With that, we decided to get the car up on a ramp to take a look at some of the components in the high mileage Tesla that most people never actually see, including the battery and the motor. But first things first, we couldn't help but noticing just how clean and tidy the underside of the car was.
Pretty clean under it.
It is actually surprisingly clean for its mileage, yeah. Pretty good. Well, you can already spot the wheel we mentioned.
Oh yeah.
So it's had some weld repair done to it.
That's been broken and then welded fixed.
Yeah, so they crack through. Let's have a look at some of the suspension. There's a little bit of play in this hub mounting bush, yeah. So let's have a look on this side. So there's a lot more play in that one.
Okay.
I mean, given its mileage, it's not surprising at all, but that's just allowing lateral movement of the hub there. I'd probably recommend that was replaced.
Yeah. So this is the battery pack right here underneath, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So right the way back here, all the way through to the front. So this here is your battery fuse cover. So
that warning on the dash.
The warning on the dash. We can access the fuse. This fuse is bolted up underneath there.
And it's the battery that's inside that fuse that's gone in that one basically. Correct. That causes it to...
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and it's just a safety function. So the current that comes out of the battery and into the motors or anything that's running on high voltage goes through this fuse. So if there's a short internally on a motor or an onboard charge or anything like that, this is there to protect it.
Yeah, you spoke about motors early on.
Yes.
Can we take a look at one of the motors on this?
Yeah, so I've got to just remove this cover from either the front or the back, whichever motor we want to have a look at.
Yeah.
We can have a look at some orange cables and some drive shafts.
All right, let's do it. So what have we got here? This is the actual rear drive unit, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
There's a little bit of oil there, actually.
That's right, yeah. It's got gears in it, it's got bearings in it. It needs to be lubricated, and it's something that's very easily forgotten. So in a car of this age, that really should be done every 80 to 90,000.
Just to hammer home the point, a lot of people, including the owner of this car, they look at Tesla who say to them, there is no service requirement for your vehicles, and they think, I'm never going to service it. But clearly, there are parts in there that would benefit from being serviced.
Absolutely, yeah.
And now for the big one, the battery health check. Now, there are several ways to check a Tesla's battery state of health. In some cars, it's possible to use the built-in service mode, although in this generation of Model S, with the older hardware, an onboard health check isn't straightforward. But you can download third-party apps on your phone that can talk to the car, revealing the battery state of health.
and Matt and I used one called Tessie to show exactly what this particular car had left. And it was better than expected. Tessie reckons that the battery health is 76.9%, which isn't too bad actually. 76.9% battery health, giving a maximum range indication of 216 miles. Now, over the course of 430,000 miles of driving, that's brilliant, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. And the fact that we can measure battery degradation, I think it just adds value to getting an EV. You can monitor your investment and how it's degrading. We've done our own check on this car remotely, and we'll compare notes.
Okay, let's see what you got. The Cleavey test, powered by a company called Altelium, is a little more in-depth, but all that's required is to send the email address from your Tesla account, plus the registration number of the car, approximate mileage and battery size, and they can provide a certificate, like this one.
So here we go, moment of truth.
So this is your report.
Absolutely.
A little bit more official than the app. What it's saying is that the state of health of this car is 72%, so pretty similar.
Yeah.
And it's got a battery health comparison that compares it to other Teslas of a similar age, and it's coming out above average. And what it's saying about the range as well is interesting. It actually estimates what range it thinks you'll get.
So how does it compare with your range test?
Well, I did a range test on motorway strictly, and I got about 190 miles, and it's saying 190 miles, which is pretty accurate. City driving, it's saying 293. Cold weather range is interesting because on the highway, it reckons kind of worst case scenario.
Yeah.
149 miles on the motorway or 199 in the city, which is actually pretty good.
It's still very usable.
Yeah.
And that's the point, that after such high mileage, it's lost slightly more than a quarter of its capacity, but you can still cover 150 miles in it.
So what's the idea behind getting this kind of certificate done for your EV?
Adding a certificate of health for the battery just puts a little bit of confidence behind a purchase,
Yeah.
especially when the values of the cars can be quite high. And also it proves the point that a second-hand EV is a good purchase.
I think, what's the thing that you'd say really comes to light after looking at this car today and going through these state of health figures?
It just proves that all of the talk that you hear in the mass media about EV batteries only lasting 8 years, costing tens of thousands to replace, that's not necessarily the case. If you treat it like any other car and you look after it and you maintain it, the battery side of things, there's such clever technology on board that it's doing its best to look after itself.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry too much about that so much. It's just get out there, use it, enjoy it. And this has done over 400,000 miles. It's been used, but it's not degraded every single one of those journeys. It's still got plenty of life in it.
Yeah, cool. All right. You can't argue with statistics and facts. It says here the car is still healthy. It's still got plenty of life left in it. It's done nearly 500,000 miles, for goodness sake, and it's still going strong. And if that doesn't prove that an aging EV isn't necessarily a ticking time bomb, then I don't know what else is. Guys, continue watching our videos. We've got more planned for this car in the very near future. But for now, like, subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.